I enjoyed. So and that really does. That's the whole Sandra Bullock thing. I actually think.
I was right. We are.
No, we are going to come back to it. I actually enjoy, so not just strictly in her rom-coms, but also in, like,
do you
for instance...
like The Proposal? Because it sucks.
Oh, I don't think so. Why do you think The Proposal
It's not
sucks?
funny, and it's Ryan, not Johnson. What's his name? Ryan Reynolds. Like, it's the one film he's been in that's not funny.
Well, okay.
Mostly because I don't feel like he was given the right... I don't know. It's terrible.
I didn't feel like it was terrible. It's certainly not my favorite of her films, but I was going to make the case that it's not just strictly the rom-coms that I actually like Sandra Bullock for. It's like if you looked at
if you've looked at Sandra Bullock.
No. Well, that's certainly true too. But okay. I'm not going to argue that that's not the part of it. But the other part of it is like if you've seen. The Blind Side, I think she's genuinely just no. That's what I'm saying.
Well, yeah,
I'm
that's
using
a good
that as an
film
example
because she's a good actress.
Right, that's my point.
You said that with I saved for you. So
I think it's a good. She's just. I find on a female lead level. See, if there are not many people that can pull off a good female lead like Sandra Bullock.
I would posit my counter argument would be Kate Blanchett.
I don't know that I've seen enough films to really allow that to be something.
Know that unironically, she played Bob Dylan in the Bob Dylan biopic.
Huh.
And I mean, literally, I saw the clip of that and was like, was this like a weird parody movie or something? And it's like, no, she actually they were just like, she could do it best. And I was like, okay, that's really weird, but she does. And I'm like, okay, that officially proves that you can play anything.
So
if you can play a man,
that's fair.
Convincingly.
There are certain times that I just will see a film because I appreciate the actor. I think that's true.
She also plays Katharine Hepburn in The Aviator. Not that that's a great film, but she does a great job at it.
Huh. Yeah, like I said, I'm not sure that I've seen enough of her films to really...
You have to not press the load. You got to press the one.
Sorry.
Manually. It's always 4.
Anyway, so those are my kind of 3 that end up really being back to 1, which is that I really enjoy strong but also respectful male leads.
This is interesting because I wasn't going to get into the various elements of like what makes it engaging because I'm not sure that there's a formula.
Maybe I'm not saying it's a formula. I was trying to just kind of stumble through it too.
I'm saying maybe if I did an examination... Oh, it's still your turn. Of like... If I went back through all my favorite films, what would be the running theme? That's actually another one of the topics I had listed. That was the old one. Which someone coined the term for that as a 5-star audit, which I think is a great term. Basically saying, if you go back through the things you have most highly rated...
Just see what you tend to like
what can you glean from them? Robots. They're the only threat left at this point. They'd take more than that from close up.
Okay.
They take more than shotgun shells. So maybe if I did that, I'd find. But I'm trying to think like, why is like Locke versus Saving Private Ryan versus Good Will Hunting? I'm like, I'm not sure. Maybe it's Matt Damon.
See,
I'm joking. He's not in Locke.
But he is in The Martian.
That's not quite as high for me though. That's another good. I don't know. I liked the book well enough, so that's why I like the movie, but it's not like a crazy high. But I don't know that I can... I don't think that it's... I wasn't trying to specifically make it a formulaic thing for me. I was simply trying to kind of stumble through, here's some of the ones that... Well, but it clearly means that it's kind of the 5-star... Well, it is a bit of the 5-star audit kind of a thing. I mean, I feel like if a story is well told, but then again, I guess that comes to the execution aspect, not to the... Yeah, what provokes you to go and see a film? Because that's what that has nothing to do with... It does, because that's before execution. Well, exactly, that's the point. But generally, that's the point. How can you... Yeah, but that's what keeps your... Well, then I suppose there might need to be a break. Then I suppose engagement might have to further break down into the emotional versus the intelligent. Well, certainly, because there are certain films I approach... That actually would make more sense. Like, for instance... That gives Inception, for example, a leg up, because it's not an emotionally engrossing film. I don't care much about Cobb's emotional backstory. but it's an intellectually interesting movie. Like, it's an interesting concept.
See, I like another good example would be like The Beautiful Mind. I actually really enjoy that movie.
Well, but see, that's just where
that was really goofy. Kind of.
Goofy?
It's not like, I mean, it's a serious film.
I only know of its synopsis, so it does not sound like
it's a serious film, and like you definitely get emotional at times, but it's goofy in that it's a bit of a.
Wow, that was a bad run.
It messes with your brain.
I suppose you've uncovered
goofy.
Something that might be valuable, actually, because.
Oh, thank you.
I mean,
you've actually contributed something of worth.
What I'm saying is that I think does better clarify rather than. So does that qualify as 3 separate pillars, or do those fall just under the one banner of engagement? I suppose they might, because to me, that's again even an intellectually interesting film, such as, for example, Inception, still can't get to the highest levels for me.
Sure, because again, it has to have that other pillar. But then again,
by the same token, well, no, because I think it's well executed and it's intellectually interesting. I suppose it might have to be 3 separate pillars. Because I have to be intellectually interested and emotionally engaged.
That would certainly sharpen the saw a little bit on why.
Which that blows a hole in my nice oval analogy.
But it certainly
robot
screws me.
Well, they both fall under the category of engagement, but I do think they are different because, like,
so maybe it's
Hallmark movies suck.
Oh, I think that can be said objectively.
Well, yes, but for the most part, I mean, yes, part of the reason they suck is because they're not very well executed. But even, like, if you took the best executed Hallmark movie, I still don't think I would like it. Because I find that they have no intellectual component.
Well, they also don't have any emotional component.
Well, but I'm saying arguing...
Even that is contrived.
No, I'm saying imagine, like, take the best one. Pick, like, of all the ones that have been made, because there's 1,000 of them. Surely one of them's got to be well made and got at least a decent emotional...
Does it, though?
I feel like if only statistically there has to be one.
You think so, but I think Hallmark's just a big steaming pile of crap.
Well, they wouldn't be around so long if they never did anything worth watching.
I have a theory on that, but I won't go into it right now.
Well, even better yet, take then a non-Hallmark movie. Take just any romantic film that succeeds in an emotional capacity, but isn't... Because, like, I just like...
intellectually engaging?
Yeah, because...
Emma would be a great example of that.
Okay, I don't think I've ever seen that. I did see the Pride and Prejudice movie, and it's...
I don't think that's intellectually engaging.
Not bad. The book's better, actually.
But I don't think that's intellectually stimulating.
Not really. And I guess, so that's why I feel like they have to be 3 separate pillars.
But what I was saying is it does sharpen the saw.
Because it's not one or.
In that it kind of clarifies why I like Peaky Blinders
if it was,
over and above Arcane. Because Arcane actually engages me on
I feel like it is a far more philosophical product. In my opinion.
Than what?
Than Peaky Blinders.
Sure. But I'm saying...
So I think intellectually speaking, Arcane trumps.
Sure.
And emotionally speaking, Arcane trumps.
Well, see, I don't
And technically speaking, Arcane trumps. Well, why would you disagree?
Emotionally, I think that...
There is far more emotional
There's more
content.
nuance in Peaky to me.
Nuance...
So,
but see, nuance doesn't mean objective...
But what's interesting is
I would say that Arcane is a more tumultuous
value...
emotional journey.
I don't know that I would agree. But I think that we've hit on something, which is, again, I tend to value the emotions.
But see, then this must then make it a third pillar, because if they were both under one pillar, then one could carry it. And again, I think we're uncovering the fact that, in my opinion at least, one can't.
Okay, where is this?
Because again, even a well-made, intellectually interesting film lacks...
Keep asking me where he is, and I'm not sure because it's not in the script.
Because, for example, no, you got to kill the lady behind the glass, and I don't know why she's behind the glass. The robot, I think, is dead.
Oh,
either that or he hasn't been activated
yet. Just been wandering around like a.
Because the robots get sent out in periodic, like they. Here he comes. Like, yeah, I think you've just alerted one of them.
Okay.
So here he comes. Red dot on the thing. The lady's behind the glass at the other end of the room, but she's protected right now, and I don't know how to unprotect her. So I get, because like, I'm trying to think. So here's a great example, because this is a film that stuck with me, surprisingly so. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. is all three things. It is technically well executed.
I still
it
have
is
yet
intellectually
to see it,
curious and emotionally compelling.
Yeah.
And like Inception doesn't have an emotionally compelling element to me. It's
Okay,
intellectually
that's fair.
interesting.
Yeah, and again, I think that then...
So it must then be three pillars, because it can't just be like a film that's emotionally compelling without any intellectual interest still won't get from me. It might get 4, because apparently 4 is the maximum anything can get without having all three pillars.
We're seriously out of everything.
We might be. No, shotgun. We got a fair few shotguns left.
Yeah,
they take a lot of... You've got... Oh, is that a... What kind of mine are you holding? Is that an electronic one? Yes, so just use that. Get it to follow you and drop that, because that'll kill it instantly.
How do I drop it?
It's the same as the grenade button, but it's a mine, so you have to make sure it will step on it. You can't just throw it at it. Like, okay, well, I mean, I guess that's one way. If he doesn't kill you before he triggers it. I don't think it's gone off.
Come on, pal.
There you go. So yeah, because electrical stuff kills robots instantly.
Can I
Should this... Okay, do we have again to make the choice we always make? Has this already been the second episode and we didn't know it? Or
Yes, got to be.
Okay.
Okay,
there's more. There's also some supply rooms. You're going to die doing that.
Can I not?
Especially if you reload while walking towards him.
Part of it that
you don't,
just...
Okay, even the most basic World War II shooter tells you to get behind cover if you have to reload.
And then there's Halo rules that says if you get close enough, you can do the melee.
Yes, to a robot. What robot do you think you're going to punch a robot?
Go and freaking tear an arm off.
I think you just have never evolved past Doom. Apparently, I should be able to run at 60 miles an hour and carry 18 different weapons.
No, I think that it is true that
so it's the three pillars, which means the oval's out the window, but
the triangle's back, which it's biblical. So there you go.
I suppose, because that does explain then why. If there are two sides of a triangle,
I'm going to go even further.
Why?
It is the soul, the spirit, and the.
I'm not going to follow you there, but
I 100% will say that. It's the whole divide of, if something is.
But then there's no technical aspect to which you can be like, the technical execution. Well, that's not a spiritual component.
No, I agree. Well, that's probably
There's
true.
the two legs of engagement, which are intellect and emotion. Those are. I think that's sort of.
But I'm
by
saying
definition.
What you're doing is essentially you're describing the schism of soul versus mind.
Maybe, but that doesn't. Then the technical expertise doesn't come into that.
Sure, that's certainly true.
Because that, I suppose let's 5-star audit now. I'll give you several runs because I'm curious.
Several runs for yourself, because I certainly can't.
No, several runs of attempts.
Oh, I thought you were meaning like.
Let us see. What's my 5? Well, I know what my 5-star films are, and they're obvious. I almost feel like I have learned everything from them I can. That's not a film. It's not a film.
Arcane.
I don't. The Letterboxd does let you rate TV shows, but I won't, just because I'm like, I prefer separation. I like things separate for a reason. Alright, got my sort by rating. Highest first. Let us see what we glean about me. I already know what they are. It's Prince of Egypt and the Lord of the Rings films.
Art 5s?
Yes. And I almost feel like there's less to learn. Again, it's the sort of Gestalt thing where it's like, I don't think you can dissect them and have them teach individual things. I think they have to be thought of as collective experiences. I'm more interested in my 4.5-star films.
Oh no!
Because I'll admit, I don't know why.
What did it save somehow since then?
I have saved everything.
No,
well, I suppose if you sit there and eat them, what
I'm saying is I don't have any my EMP. Nothing is here.
Yeah, because you destroyed that guy. I think.
Well, but
you might still have the mine.
I don't.
Well, then we must have done it. Now here's an awkward thing. Why is it? Maybe it's just because my 5-star films have been in the 5 stars for so long. I've extracted all from them I can. So maybe the reason I'm interested is I'm more curious about my 4.5-star films, because I have to admit I don't.
Why is it that you're sorry to derail? Why is it that Lord of the Rings across the board are all 5 stars? I don't know that I would
each. Well, because they're one movie in my mind. Like, if you were to ask me what are my top 3 films, technically speaking, I would have to tell you it's all 3 Lord of the Rings films. But it's like, generally speaking, you would say The Lord of the Rings is like all one. And they were filmed that way, they were written that way.
Sure.
I feel like that counts. And I think I don't think any of them is worse than any other.
No, I mean, they certainly were well made films.
Okay, let's see what we can learn. All right, well, there's already an interesting parallel with Truman Show and Castaway. In a solitude contemplation sort of way. Okay, you have to manually load the save every time. Just remember it.
That would be back to the whole intellectual engagement thing.
No, there's a lot of emotion. I think Truman Show is a really kind of a dark film when you think about it. Like, this dude's been literally effectively enslaved.
Dark, but
like he effectively is enslaved for the amusement of others.
Sure.
Simply the fact that he's unaware of it doesn't make that any less extreme. Castaway, I think, has obviously got strong emotional components as well.
Yeah.
Saving Private Ryan, similar deal. Locke, similar deal. So apparently it's
isolation films.
No. Locke's not an isolation film. It's only
he's sitting in a car on his own.
That's not isolation.
Film.
Okay, that's not isolation. Get your facts straight. Solitude and isolation are not the same thing.
Okay.
Absolutely. To be isolated is a thing done to you. Solitude is just a thing.
I'm not saying that it's arbitrary.
Only by execution. That is only because it's executed that way. I think the interest of the film would still be interesting had they had other people in it. The fact that they managed it with one actor is what makes it technically interesting, but I still think the content of it, had there been other actors in it, would still have been good. Now here, this throws a bit of a loop. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is a 4.5 for me. I almost feel like the technical expertise of that is what carries most of it. Because I'll admit, I'm not as that one has the least emotion. But I think it has enough emotion. So I guess not all three pillars have to be present. I mean, okay, all three pillars have to have a showing, but it doesn't have to be perfect from all three categories. Like the Into the Spider-Verse is a technically mastered, masterfully executed and intellectually interesting, and it has enough emotional content to push it over the edge.
It's a little bit like a mobile almost, where it has to be balanced in those three elements. Not balanced, but like all of those elements have to be present.
I would say you think of it as sort of like, this is where I've never broken down the math, because I think that would be too technical and would be too finite, and you'd be sort of losing the forest for the trees, as it were. But if you were to think about it as sort of like a cumulative test, like imagine that you take 3 tests in a row.
Do it again.
And you need, well, then I'm glad.
It's already too late.
Well, you need to just get it through your head. So it's like, imagine you're going to perform 3 challenges, you take 3 tests, or something like this, and all you have to do is reach a certain level of points. And the level of points you need is more than any individual test. But it doesn't take a perfect score in all 3 to pass.
Right.
But it takes a perfect score.
It's a culmination question.
It would take either a perfect score in 2 and, a half showing in the 3rd, or very high scores in all 3, or some combination, is my point. Think of it a little bit like an SAT. But in other words,
you would not be able to do 2 perfect scores in one and the other, and then
I would still maintain 2 perfect scores is probably not enough for me, but that means that you could have a super paltry showing in the 3rd category, and as long as it's enough to boost it, that'll get you the points. Whereas you could just have not necessarily excellent, but good in all 4, and that would also get you the same number of points. I'm thinking essentially like an SAT. There's different sections of the SAT, and the points add up. So you could ace the math and the comprehension and then bomb whatever the 3rd category is. I mean, you can't really bomb it, that would still be bad. But you could do less good and still have a good SAT score. Or you could just get generally good scores all around. And I feel like that's the case where that one was intellectually interesting and technically executed well enough that the emotional component is enough to get me through it with a high score, even though it wasn't like, I'm gripped. There's more than I thought also of the 4.5s. I'm not sure I can draw any emotional through line from any of these. Similarities in some of them, like Truman Show, Castaway, Good, Saving Private Ryan, but none of them are emotional for the same reasons. I don't know. Perhaps doing this live isn't gonna do anything. I'm gonna spend too much time silently contemplating. I don't know. I think any film which has certain psychological elements is gonna give it a boost. Like Good Will Hunting and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Because those not only are 4.5s, those are like... I almost sometimes wonder whether or not those should be 5-star films for me. I'm very hesitant to give things 5 stars for the obvious reason that, like, it has to really unequivocally earn that.
Sure.
And yet, I don't know if I could name for you why don't they why am I not unequivocal about them? Because I'm not sure I could tell you. I don't know. I'm not sure how fruitful this will be in terms of... Yeah. I think psychological... I guess Castaway doesn't overtly...
It's kind of a psychological
It's
question.
definitely... It raises psychological questions within you, but it doesn't deal with them, I guess.
It kind of
like
does.
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless... Not really. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind and Good Will Hunting literally involve psychology in them. Like, there are scenes with psychologists. Whereas I think Castaway sort of posits the question to you as the viewer what the psychological effect of all of this would be.
Here's a need for therapy. Be gone with you.
And I suppose... I don't know. Anything that tackles the question of meaning, I think... I mean, as broad as that is, I think that does... I think each of those films does that to a certain degree. Well, maybe not.
Meaning is a good question.
The Spider-Verse doesn't really touch on that, but again, I think it succeeds by being so great at everything else that it doesn't have to be as great in that. Because even like V for Vendetta is up in the 4.5 stars, and that's not exactly the definition of meaning, but it's sort of. I mean, the definition of freedom.
Got a purpose.
Yeah, it's a essentially.
It's certainly an
intellectual discussion of some form of philosophical merit. Again, that feels awfully broad, and I guess it is, but I guess so few things do it well that being broad doesn't matter. Okay. I don't know how to hurt what's her head. Okay, so I know that there's some sort of like stock room that has ammo in it, or at least there used to be. I need some EMPs. Plasma capsules. I bet you a plasma gun would work, but I don't have one. Oh, I've got Typhoon stuff. I could probably use that to take out the robots. I don't have any of these weapons. Alright, well, we'll see what happens if I just charge forth. You don't see me! Pirouette. I don't even know if this will hurt it. It doesn't appear to have. It has not hurt it. It is not hurt. I mean, is it hurt at all? Did that get me anywhere nearer success? Okay, well that might have done something then. Okay, so I don't know how to hurt you. Do I shoot the electrical sparks? Things that spark electrically generally are not... Do I just have to like pour damage into this? I don't... Did they give me a thing of like, I have to do this to succeed? Because I don't remember them doing that. Do I have to deactivate whatever this shield she's got on?
Well, I mean, certainly if you're wanting to get to her.
Yeah, but it doesn't tell me how to do that. Like, it just tells me this is where to go. Ah, there's robots everywhere forever! I don't know. So I think that's as specific as I think I can get. Is I think that it does have to engage me on some degree of intellectual matter.
Yeah.
To be somewhat emotionally engaging and then to be executed well.
Yeah, and the execution, like the objective side of things as far as the movie ratings, I don't feel like I really need to break those further apart because it's just a matter of normal
I think,
film
everyone kind of
technicality.
Knows.
Well,
again,
but I mean, I would say this. Our Our culture, both in family
culture
and
doesn't know.
Well, no, our culture based on our own subculture and family, as well as in friend groups, tends to be people that watch films this way. Where like it's literally asking questions about shots and framing and why they use a particular. Like for instance, my favorite thing about Lord of the Rings, as far as no, but I'm saying those are the kinds of things you use to evaluate. Like execution, partially. I mean,
sure, I think execution in writing.
Yeah, writing is another big part of it.
Did I just have to kill the robots? Was that it? The robots?
Really stupid.
Well, hi. Can you just smell this? Oh, I feel like shotgun to the brain is a bit more of a conversation ender than it. Okay, there you go. Woohoo! She's gonna melt down. Oh, literally. There is no biological explanation for why that would happen. The computer is in her bloodstream and it's projecting light out of her face. And then she exploded with such force that I hit the wall. Alright, well, we're about to hit the end of the game.
What I was meaning was on a technical level, you know, some of those things are a little bit more understood by our particular group of people. It's maybe not understood by the masses. But she's a charred piece of ash. She's nothing but a pile of ash. Well, no, like one of my favorite things in the films. Machine. In the films of Lord of the Rings is the whole Force perspective on how they do the Gandalf versus the Hobbits and all that.
That's the kind of thing that you don't even notice, though.
Yeah, but I love that. Like the fact that the filmmakers have pulled that off is amazing.
Alright, so we're at the end of the film, which means I have to press the button on the ending Tron.
Tuned into this place.
That says...
we're having a cutscene.
Go outside. Stop
it. So the news lady's basically telling us that whatever we do will...
Do you know where we are, Adam?
Matter.
One door opens. Another closes.
She's essentially reiterating the psychological, philosophical...
Everything you already know.
I guess psycho-philosophical is a good way to get me intellectually interested, and I suppose some people are put off by that. So I guess I can't say that that's like everyone feels the way about that.
No, that's true.
Because I think some people are intellectually interested in much more simple things, and that's not a bad thing.
It's kind of a bad thing.
No, I mean, because again, a film can be well made and be like about a very highly specific subject that doesn't have to be like philosophically deep. And if you're interested in that one subject, like Whiplash doesn't exactly have a philosophical... I mean, you could argue the philosophical point of like the pursuit of greatness at the cost of... Sure, I guess you could extract a philosophical definition out of that, but if you're just a person who really likes music, the movie is about music and it's well made, so maybe that's all you need.
No one will be left to know what happened, Adam.
Nobody, right. We probably should pay attention to the options she's giving us.
It's yours. Do you believe you...
Do I have the wisdom to choose an appropriate future, or do I trust mankind to make the answers on its own?
Trust mankind to find the...
This is effectively the question, but there is a third option that I don't remember. So essentially, I forget what it is, because I remember that there's this button and there's this thing down here. I forget what this does. But that's the other ending button. We should have paid more attention. I should have gone. Is there a way I can get those? Can you give me the rundown again, miss? There you go. Anyway, I want to... What? Okay. So I can agree with what's his head, the mass murderer, and broadcast his message to the world. Or I cannot do that. Am I misremembering? Are there only 2 answers to this game? I thought there were 3 options. Here's what happened here. What experience should I give? Darrow's truth. No answer at all. Were there only 2 options? Am I misremembering to anyone else who's played this? I could have sworn there were 3 options.
I do not know, because I did not ever play this game.
Does she come back? We should have paid more attention to what she said. Can I talk to her again? News lady. Or does she come back? Like, is this one of those situations where if I take too long, she'll be like, here's another option since you seem conflicted. I can't help but notice.
Like when you're at the bank and you're trying to deposit a check and it's like, do you need more time?
What?
Should we send somebody out there to make sure your medication's been taken?
What does this one do? Self-destruct. So are these the only two options? I thought there was more. Because from what I gather, I thought we could either side with mass murderer psychopaths and basically make the whole world believe that the problem was like augmentation's the problem and we can't trust it. Or I thought I could expose him for being a mass crazy man. And then I thought the last option was to self-destruct and basically leave the world to like make up its own mind because no one will know. But this is now only giving me the option to either... Oh, you know what? Am I an idiot? There's 3 terminals here that have buttons that are locked off. Did I have to save the other guy and get his opinion to unlock the ending option?
That would be stupid and
That
weird.
would be very stupid because I'm going to look that up because I seem to recall there being more than one option. And if that was part of it, I mean... On one hand, I commend a game for demanding something of you, but a little bit of warning that that was necessary would have been nice.
You may, as you're walking out of the room, you may need this guy later.
Well, like, if you're going to give me... To expect that I will do something to unlock the necessary thing, it's like, I grant that they should... Games that demand things of players are not a problem. But I do think I should have known what the options were ahead of time so I could have planned accordingly. And endings. We're going to sit here while I Google this. Given the internet speed, it probably will take a while. Here's the dumb thing about VPNs. Since we're on the subject. Maybe someone could explain to me, do all VPNs make you do the stupid prove you're human every time you use the internet?
I don't think so.
I don't think they should. But I noticed, it's not like every single time, but I noticed that I sometimes get like, we need to make sure you're human messages when I'm trying to Google something. Randomly, it's not all the time, it's just random times. And I can only assume that that's the VPN doing that, because I've never had that issue before. So, I mean, it could just be that it's like, we can't detect your signal, therefore we're not sure if you're a person. Okay. Wow. So help me. That's very stupid. I'm very annoyed. So yes, these 3 buttons are not accessible because I didn't save the necessary people.
So you only have the
Because they
one
had
options.
to give me...
The other keys?
They're not even keys. They just had to explain to me their opinion. And then I would use that as an ending option. That's very rude.
So now you only have one option, which is what, do?
I can either destroy the whole station or... Now, according to this is not saying...
I'm going to blow up the Earth.
So that's... Okay, so I was wrong in my synopsis. So I can reveal... This middle option is the reveal the truth. In which, what's his head actually... Essentially, this is like his confession that he rigged the whole thing.
Well, there you go. Let's do that one.
So that's effectively like giving people the... I thought that this was giving them his interpretation. But according to at least this guide is saying that that is... broadcast his confession in which nothing is held back, all information is revealed. Whereas to get with Seraph, if we had saved Seraph, he would have told us... Okay, so it seems like not doing any of these other ones are actually only helpful to them. That's why I thought there were more options, because I guess maybe I did that. Now, this is what's weird, is that according to this, the other 2 options are actually like hiding things for the ends of the various people. Like if I save if we save the boss, he can tell us to tell people like something that we blame. He puts the blame on the extremist movement. But that would actually necessitate excluding some of the facts that basically were manipulating the information so as to get a specific end. I actually feel like these are less positive. Huh. That's weird. So this is the honest option. But here's what's weird. Causing the structure to collapse. This is what sort of throws me off then, because this feels like destroying the station and telling the truth. Wouldn't they both produce the same message?
No, because one's going to actually leave the culture in a bit of turmoil.
Well, this is presumably the two they're suggesting. They're not suggesting that telling the truth is going to make things easy, because that's factual.
Well, that's
but
what I was...
No, maybe this guide is... Maybe the guide is misguided, because I can't help but feel like if this is his message... Isn't it going to be biased? The guide seems to imply that this is like the full truth and nothing but the truth. Because in that context, I suppose it would be best... Because the reasoning, at least the guide is saying that the reasoning is it's not up to any of us to make this decision. That's why we should just destroy the whole station and let mankind figure it out for itself. But it's like, yeah, but mankind could probably make a better decision if it had the information. Well, I don't want to redo this whole boss fight and go back and save the other two people, especially knowing that their options are bad anyways. Because they essentially only serve certain interests. I feel like this also serves certain interests, but I'm trusting the guide, so don't blame me. I'm going to trust that this is the whole truth and nothing but the truth. The unadulterated truth in Darrow's confession may well convince mankind to
cast all science and technology.
Yeah, but that's not... That doesn't mean simply because that's his opinion that everyone will agree. Like, he's confessing to rigging this. Like, sure. He's basically saying, I fabricated this hoax so as to make you all distrust technology. That doesn't mean mankind's going to go, we should distrust technology. They're going to go, he's a psychopath.
We should distrust the people who distrust technology.
So I feel like that's... I don't know. I feel like there's more nuance than they're suggesting, but Well, this might be me thinking more deeply than the game is allowing, because I feel like to tell the truth does not implicitly mean that people will trust what he says. Now, perhaps you could, as an indictment of modern culture, maybe people would just trust the madman, but I'm gonna pick this option, and here's Adam Jansen getting very edgy.
Albert Einstein said, technological progress is like an axe in the hands of a pathological criminal.
I suppose we could maybe turn this bit up a little bit. But
this is beyond... Is this the propaganda he pushed out?
No, this is Adam reflecting on what he's done and why he's doing it.
Okay, so he's edgelord.
Yes, well, I mean, it's already been established, but...
We built to improve life, shattering the lives of millions.
It does seem an awful lot like it's siding with what's-his-head McGee.
We want to turn that dream on ourselves to fundamentally...
Showing us a bunch of reasons why technology's bad and nature's good.
That can be. How many times in the Call of Duty did I almost fall into the trap of taking shortcuts, abusing my ability?
This is what's funny.
It seems a little heavy-handed.
This is what's funny, is that this is how he tries to get moral about it, where he's like, how many times did I take shortcuts and then by that they mean we killed people who were not inherently bad, they were just in our way.
Strength enables dominance.
To which I say, okay. Otherwise it would not have been a video game, but...
Everyone understood this.
I don't know.
That using technology to become something more...
Okay, so this seems as though it's kind of agreeing...
Aspire.
That's why I'm remembering it this way, is because... This cutscene seems to actually agree with him, which I don't think the premise does.
Some men, the power...
To say that we tell the truth, and it kind of jumps to the logical extreme of, so we agree with the madman, technology's bad. It's like, no, I just believe that people should know before they make the decision.
It's not the end of the world.
Yeah. Well, and again, people have to recognize it as a tool only.
The
problem is that people start to interact. This is a bit endemic of things that are new, people use to such excess that then they end up becoming...
What was the glowing
They end
light?
up becoming almost like people think
that was
they're
it.
necessary for them to function. And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, when they become ubiquitous with, oh, that's just expected, I have that. It's like, no.
I feel like maybe this is more why people criticize it, is that it treats even the decisions you make as less nuanced than they actually are. Because based on the guide, which seems, I don't know, the guide seemed a little more even-handed, saying that we're telling the truth. I thought initially we were just broadcasting What's-His-Head's message, and that kind of feels like what the cutscene's implying, is that we agree with him. It's like, well, no, I don't agree with him. Again, is this just why people are just stupid? They think, well, the fact that you let him speak means you must agree. It's like, no, it's because his opinion deserves to be shared and then discussed. Not that I'm simply agreeing with him because I'm allowing him to speak. It's almost as if free speech matters not because we agree. It's almost like it matters
because we disagree.
It's like it only matters when we disagree.
Well, hence Elon Musk's whole point about the whole Twitter debacle recently.
So maybe, yeah, well.
Because I appreciated, as much as I didn't, love the fact that happened while he was away. It was funny that the minute he stepped back into the equation, he was like, no, we got to fix this. This isn't how this goes. But then he clarified, I don't specifically agree with everything in this film, and he is one that apparently does not have a problem with using gender pronouns of people that are gender dysphoric. But he goes, but the argument needs to be had nonetheless. And I'm like, see, that I can respect, because people
I don't know who said it, but it's just true. It's like free speech only matters when you disagree with someone.
Right.
The idea that you should be free to be agreed with is false. So the cutscene seems to imply more than I meant with the decision. So don't get mad at me. This is not my first time playing, and I'm sure the first time I did, I was more
Look at that
deliberate.
Smile on that man's face.
Who is that man?
I don't know, but we know why he was smiling.
What is this Why are these random pictures coming up? I mean, I'm assuming these are the people who built this, but I don't know. Don't take this playthrough as my opinion. This was just the only decision that made sense in the context. I forget what I chose the first time. I think I went with the destroy the station and...
Destroy? Oh, destroy.
Because I think, having watched the cutscenes, I think if we are to believe the game that effectively Daryl was right, and that by broadcasting his message, his end was brought about, I don't think that would logically follow from our decision, but if the game is implying that that's what happened, then that's probably not what I would do. But again, that's a consequentialist argument. I'm only saying that because the game is telling me what happens as a result.
In the future,
In terms of the material decision, I think telling people the truth and letting them decide is the same thing.
Well, it's the most morally... It's the most morally responsible,
the argument that they're trying to make is, well, we can either tell people the truth and they'll make up their decision, or we can tell them nothing and they'll still make up a decision. And between those two decisions, I'd say the better decision is the informed decision, but that doesn't mean that the person's opinion whom I'm broadcasting is also what I agree with. Whereas the game seems to kind of
that kind of does beg the question. It raises the question, are there certain things that are better unshared so that people make their minds up about something non-informed than they are shared?
I would say no, and I don't think there's any argument to the contrary, personally. It's like, why is Mein Kampf banned in Germany? It's because it's like, I don't know. I don't think it's right. I understand the element of, we don't agree with this, we don't want to give it air time, therefore we hide it, but it's like, you're not going to stop people from agreeing with it just because you've hidden it. So, it's like, I believe it should be published and then discussed, because if you think that it is morally inferior, that is a case you should be able to make by talking about it.
Yeah.
You can't simply say, we think that this is so morally reprehensible that it can't be discussed, because it's like, that suggests your own position isn't very defensible. If you think you're right, then you should be able to explain why this is wrong. And only when you can't explain why something is wrong do you hide it. At least that is... I don't know. That's my philosophical take on the matter. I think that Is there anything so heinous that it shouldn't be discussed? I'm not even sure that that's the case. I think there's certain contexts in which things should not be discussed.
Maybe that's more what I mean. Like for instance, you wouldn't share that, like a specific heavy topic with a child, or maybe you would.
That depends.
Or maybe you would temper the way that you share it. I
suppose children can handle heavier topics than they are usually given.
Well, that
doesn't mean you drop them with the weight of all moral calamity all at once.
Sure.
But, I don't know, it's like, okay, if you don't think... Because ultimately, that's the thing I would want to ask someone who's like, we should never discuss... I guess to make it more American, it's like, why do we have to completely hide Civil War history? Because it seems that if you think you're correct, and your position is the right one, why can you not defend it in the face of those who would not agree? Why is it that we have to hide the history of it and bury these facts? Because that implies that you don't think your position is right enough.
See, I feel like it's more about not trusting the general populace.
Well, that is also, I suppose,
to
part
actually
of it.
Accept the opinion you have, but that's...
Yeah, but even then I would argue that still comes from a point of ideological insecurity.
Yeah, that's true. That's a fair...
Because, I mean, you could always make the argument that there's going to be idiots who just won't listen to reason. That much is true. But...
I think it's more the burden responsibility, right? I mean, blowing up the building is, I'm washing my hands of this altogether. The other actually involves you in a bit of a integral way, because at that point you become a bit of the voice of truth, and reason to bring.
Yeah, I do think that there is a certain degree of cowardice in true neutrality. Yeah. To say, well, because even like the way he frames it, I believe in the cutscene is like, it's not who is it up to decide? Is it up to me or them? No. By which I mean, I don't want the responsibility of putting my 2 cents in. Because what if someone listens to me? It's like, well then, if you're afraid of people doing what you recommend, that should suggest that maybe you should consider what you recommend better. Because I think that, yeah, there's a certain degree of like, oh, I wash my hands of this. But to do so isn't inherently, it's a bit of the Pontius Pilate thing. It's like, you think you're being noble when in reality you're just covering your own rear end. Well, I don't know how long the credits go for.
Clearly long enough that we're at the end. Well, this is the end.
Oh, you got a 2 cents to wrap off with. That ended up more philosophical than we thought. I guess, that's the nature of the game, but...
I don't specifically have a 2
Basically, you should be free to discuss any opinion, no matter how stupid, because if it's truly stupid, it will be self-evidently so. And thus, what do you have to fear from things you think are ideologically incorrect? What you have to fear is that maybe you're not correct.
Yeah, but that shouldn't be the thing to be feared. The fear should be, what if I don't have the option to actually think for myself?
No, because why would you be afraid of that? Because that means, again, it's washing your hands. Well, it wasn't my decision.
No, okay. I'm not saying that. I'm saying for others to basically then put the notion of being led by someone else should be terrifying. No. By comparison
but why? Well, why? Because for many people, again, that gives them the excuse of going, well, it wasn't my decision, therefore I'm not culpable, which is false. It's an easy delusion that dissuades. It's like, well, because it wasn't my decision, I don't have to feel bad about what happened. But it's like, okay, but that's actually, I think, greater cowardice than saying, I could be wrong about my decision.
But it's not...
Because again, it's like, who am I to say? Who are you not to say?
Yeah, that's true. You had the option.
Who am I to decide? A conscious individual.
Well, who are you not to decide?
I actually go far enough. This again takes a certain degree of Zen framework, but it's like, who are you? I am no. Why would that?
I am a part of the collective.
Not that you would say this.
Not to that degree. But
again, if I were to be inflammatory, if someone were to ask me and I was trying to sort of frazzle them, you would just be like, well, I am consciousness.
Yeah, it's like...
I am as much consciousness as you are. Yeah. Therefore, to say, well, who are you to make the decision? Who are you to stop me? Like, what?
There's nothing we can't given time. She's here. I have to cut this short.
I don't remember this.
Going through the record.
She's here.
Something we can use for the Morpheus.
What?
Come in.
I have to run it out.
Dr. Reed.
Or is this...
We're so pleased you decided to join us.
Is this like a... was this a spoiler, like, teaser for the next game?
They told Theseus before he entered the Minotaur's labyrinth, always forward, never
What?
left or right. You'll be very interested in our current project. We're breaking new ground.
Yes, the nanite virus chimera is quite intriguing. I'm looking forward to seeing the
Nanite virus.
page.
And so you shall. But please,
Oh!
call me.
I don't think I ever... Maybe this is... They were pulling the Marvel stuff before even we knew about it. I never waited to the end of the credits to find that stuff. But anyway, that's like genuinely... That's... Again, I think, is that sort of an inflammatory way to say it? Yes, but I think it gets the point across that says this notion that no individual is able to take a stand. It's like, I am as qualified to say this as anyone.
It's interesting, though,
because
that you
we
would
are
go
all
the
not
Zen
qualified
concept, though, because I feel like it's more about the agency of the individual more than it is about the collective consciousness. You know what I mean?
I'm not talking about the collective consciousness. I'm simply saying the point is, because if I were to say it succinctly, I think you could very easily get a kind of soundbite that's like, who are you? I am existence. Therefore, I get to decide. And that's not what I mean, because that inflates the ego.
Well,
whereas what I'm saying is,
makes it sound
I am
almost...
as much... Because here's the thing. I don't know if Alan Watts has ever said this, but this is the understanding that I have come to based on the way he describes it. Because the Western danger of something like Zen is that it can, rather than cancel the ego, it can actually inflate the ego, where you think, oh, I am all that there is, which means everyone else is subject to me. And it's like, no, you're conflating incorrectly. Whereas I think the best way to say it is, I am as much, rather than saying a very trite, overused sort of Zen-ism of like, I am the universe. It's not, that's oversimplified. I think the correct thing to say that is factually correct is, I am as much of the universe as anyone else.
Yeah.
Which is what that's meant to do. It's not meant to say, I am above everything. It's no, bringing the above down is what it's meant to do. So who am I? I am as much of the decision as you are. So, again, you can only act and accept consequence. You can never... This idea of, well, I didn't participate in it, therefore the consequence is down the line.
Back to Ayn Rand, I'm actually going to quote her for a second. She actually says at one point, you can... you have the ability and the choice, the freedom to choose not to embrace reality, but you do not have the freedom to choose
consequence from
to not embrace the consequences that come from not embracing reality.
Well, yeah, so I think to say, this whole who am I to say I am me? That's who I am to say, and that is as much justification as literally anyone has.
Me and you are me.
Like, your justification for it is, because you might make the argument, well, I've got this experience that's relevant, blah blah blah. What you're saying is, I am me. Your argument is, I have the right to make this opinion because of who I am. When you talk about your qualifications and all the reasons your opinion's right, that is what you're saying. I have the right to make this decision because I'm me.
Well,
and I have just as much of the right to say that as you go, I have just as much a right because it's me. Again, I am as much of...
How? That's me.
I am as much of existence as you are, therefore, who's to stop me? And so that's why I think
that takes I don't know. It takes
a certain degree of certainty.
Well, that also
which most
takes
people are afraid
of the individual.
People are afraid to have an opinion.
That's the bigger issue.
Because ultimately, the point of the matter is, to have an opinion means to claim some form of objective understanding, and most people are not courageous enough to do that.
Either that, or they are afraid of offending somebody else. And again, it's like to have an opinion. It's the whole Jordan Peterson thing. To have an opinion is to essentially
ultimately, to have an opinion
inflammatory
is the thing that opens you up to being wrong.
Right.
So if you don't have an opinion, you're never wrong. And it's like, yeah, sure. And if you don't do anything, you never fail. That's true. You are also a giant sook.
There you go. Let's end like that.
No, okay. My point, I wanted it to at least end with more of a flourish than that.
Yeah, I thought you nailed it. No, it's true. It takes courage to utilize... No, I'm not even going to say utilize. To step into agency on the greater
because
stage
agency
on the
is
greater
consequence.
stage, right, on the greater stage of culture, like interacting with others. Because if you do that privately in your own space, great, but there's no consequence to that, because that would be like, it's the equivalent to me of like in a this is a bit of a odd and kind of very taffy-like stretch as far as me applying this, but it would be like the equivalent of like a private sandbox in an open sandbox kind of world, where it's like there's no consequences in this, like a Minecraft creative, where you're going, I literally can do whatever I want just simply because, and you're going, okay, sure, privately you can do that, but the minute you actually step into, when I do this, I can't reverse it. It's like, yeah, that's true. And you're going to say some dumb things, and you're also going to say some really profound things. So just...
Well, because that's... Yeah, I think there's just... The trouble is that we learned quite brutally in the 19th century, not the 19th century, the 1900s, what a bad person with power can do. And so people thought,
well, given
taking
again,
a stance at all is a
yeah.
bad thing, because we've seen how it can go so bad. And it's like... But the trouble is, if everyone doesn't... You're never going to get a society where no one cares. So this whole notion of like, well, it doesn't bother me, I don't get involved, I don't care, you know...
It's what
whatever. It's like, okay.
And that's what a lot of people are trying to do both politically
exactly,
and
they try to think
now.
that it's like, I don't want to bother. It's like...
Well, not talking about it is almost more...
But then what
pious.
that does mean is that, well, yes, but then it's like, okay, that then means that the people who do care will get their way. If you don't care, the people who do care will win.
Well, and this is why I go,
Plato knew this. This is
somehow piety has now been replaced or been substituted for this notion of, oh, well, I just don't have an opinion on things, therefore I never offend anybody.
Well, exactly,
it's like,
but if that's the Nietzschean concept of you're not good because you're virtuous, you're good because you're too afraid to be bad.
Right.
It's like, I've never offended anyone, therefore I must be good. It's like, no, that just means you're a coward. Because it's like Plato knew this back in the day. What is the quote that he says? There's two. One of them's a lot more to the point, and I know it wasn't the one I was thinking, because he says something like, to be ignorant in the realm of politics is to what's the word? Resign yourself to being ruled by bad men, or something like that. But he has another one which I think is better, which is... I can't remember it. Was he also the one who said, if you take no interest in politics, politics still takes an interest in you? Or was that Aristotle?
I'm not familiar with.
But the point is, it's like, if you decide, well, I just don't care enough, that might sound like a virtuous thing. Like, oh, I don't impose my will on anyone. It's like, great, then someone else's will be imposed on you. And that will might be horrific, and you're not opposing it, is on your hands. I promise
you that you responding to that by not... You can either respond to that by yielding to if you yield to everything, you will not be... It's the definition of that biblical blown and tossed by the wind, the double-minded man. It's like, if you... Not to specifically spin this like in a hard direction towards theology, but you go... If you don't take a stance for anything, then eventually there will come a point that someone else is placing some sort of burden on you in which you have to make a decision. You'll either effectually receive the control from someone else or reject it. It's like...
There was no author to this quote, but I thought the way it put it was great, and it said that the future belongs to those who show up.
Yeah, dude.
And it's like...
There's another quote that says 95% of life is showing up. It's true. It's like...
Well, because the point is, if you abdicate the choice, then you are going to be inevitably driven by the people who didn't.
Yeah.
And the people who didn't may not always be good people, which is why if you consider yourself a good person, again, that's part of the issue. So no one wants to consider themselves that way because they're too afraid of what it would mean. Then you have to...
Well, and there's a difference to me between, like, the Petersonian concept of I resist calling myself a virtuous person because I recognize what kind of weightiness that is. There's a difference between that and saying, I'm just not going to attempt any level of moral...
they're the same thing, I would say.
No, it's different to me because the way that Jordan approaches that, in my opinion, is one of well, no, because he has never used that as an excuse. Right, exactly.
That's the point. Is you go, here's this ultimate question: is the root of it is people are afraid to do anything.
Right.
And it's like, okay, if you view yourself as a good person, you must stand up in opposition to those who will take the power because they want to misuse it. If you think, well, I would rather just be left alone, too bad, that's not a choice, because somebody else is going to make the decisions, and they might be a bad person with bad decisions. Therefore, if you could consider yourself good, it is actually your responsibility to stand up and take the power.
Right.
And people think, well, no, doesn't that disqualify you from being good, because I shouldn't enforce my will on others. It's like, someone's going to enforce someone's will. It doesn't actually matter.
Well, I mean...
The question is, whose will is going to be enforced?
The whole...
If you think you have a decent enough will... Which, again, takes a certain degree of introspection. It's, in fact, far more dangerous if you think you are justified.
Yeah.
So the fact that you are like... It's, again, you just... What if I'm wrong? You are. That's where it comes down to. Just forget the notion of ever succeeding at being good. Because you won't.
Yeah.
The problem is, if you don't do anything, then we are guaranteed to be ruled by people who are bad.
Correct.
And you'd rather,
You'd rather put the fail forward.
It's either guaranteed failure or, slim chance of success. It's like, yeah, they both might go equally as wrong.
Right.
But one is guaranteed, the other has a chance.
Right.
Anyways, now we can end with the moralizing out of the way. Well, I don't know what we're gonna play after this.
The game of life.
Wow.